The girl vanished under the water without a scream. 1 second she was there, small hands gripping the stone edge of the river walk. The next, the current swallowed her whole. A splash tore through the quiet afternoon. People turned. Someone shouted. Nia Carter didn't. She dropped the tray before it hit the ground and ran. Her shoes slipped on the wet stone. The river looked calm from a distance, almost beautiful, but she knew better. She had worked along the harbor long enough to see what that water did to people who underestimated it. She jumped. The cold hit her like a punch to the chest. Her lungs seized. Panic flared for half a second. Pure instinct screaming at her to surface, to breathe. She forced her eyes open underwater. Darkness, murk, movement. She kicked hard, arms cutting through the water until her fingers brushed fabric. She grabbed, missed, reached again. This time she caught the child's arm. The girl was sinking fast. Nia wrapped one arm around the child's chest and drove upward, legs burning as she fought the pull of the river. Her head broke the surface first, then the girl's. Air rushed back into her lungs painfully. Hands reached down from above. Someone grabbed the child. Someone else pulled Nia by the shoulder. She collapsed onto the stone, coughing violently, water streaming from her hair and clothes. For a moment, everything went quiet. The girl lay still. Nia pushed herself up on shaking arms, eyes locked on the small body beside her. Then the girl coughed. Water spilled from her mouth as she sucked in air. Her chest heaved once, twice. Her eyes flew open, wide and startled. The sound she made wasn't a cry. It was a sharp breath, controlled too quickly for a child who had almost drowned. That was the first thing Nia noticed. The second was the silence. The crowd hadn't rushed forward the way she expected. People stood frozen, phones half-raised, voices low and uncertain. It was as if no one knew what to do next. A man pushed through them. He was tall, dressed in a dark suit that didn't belong near water, shoes already ruined as he dropped to his knees beside the girl. His hands hovered for a second, trembling, before he pulled her into his arms. "Elise," he whispered. "Elise, look at me." The girl turned her head calmly. "I fell," she said. Her voice was steady. Too steady. The man exhaled sharply, gripping her tighter. Only then did Nia really look around. 3 men stood a few steps back, all dressed alike. No uniforms, no badges. Their eyes weren't on the girl. They were scanning the crowd, watching. Behind them, at the edge of the street above the riverwalk, black cars idled, engines running, windows dark. They hadn't been there before. A chill crawled up Nia's spine. She pushed herself to her feet, heart pounding. Someone handed her a towel. She barely noticed. "Are you okay?" a woman asked. Nia nodded. "She's alive. That's what matters." She took 1 step back. The man in the suit looked up at her then. His gaze was sharp, assessing. Gratitude was there, but underneath it, something colder. "Thank you," he said. "You saved her life." Nia nodded once. Anyone would've, but they hadn't. She turned away before he could say more. She didn't run. She walked fast, head down, weaving through the thinning crowd. Every instinct she had was screaming at her to disappear. She didn't look back. She didn't see the man in the suit watching her go. She didn't see him raise his phone. She didn't hear what he said into it. But somewhere behind her, a decision had already been made. She was halfway down the narrow street behind the harbor when the sound of footsteps reached her. Measured, unhurried, not chasing, following. Nia ducked into the restroom of a closed cafe and locked the door behind her. She leaned against the sink, breathing hard, staring at her reflection. Her skin was pale beneath the water droplets. Her hands shook violently now. You did the right thing, she told herself. But right things didn't usually come with black cars and men in suits. A knock came at the door. Firm. Controlled. Nia Carter. Her blood went cold. She didn't answer. "You're not in trouble," the voice said calmly. "Male. Not French. We just want to speak with you." "How do you know my name?" she called back. A pause. "We ask good questions." Her stomach dropped. "I already gave a statement," she said. "To the dock workers." "You gave a statement about the fall," the voice replied. "Not about what happened before it." Silence pressed in. Slowly, Nia unlocked the door. Two men stood in the hallway. One older, hair neatly combed, eyes sharp with intelligence. The other younger, scanning the corridor behind her even as they spoke. "My name is Laurent," the older man said. "I work for the girl's family." Nia folded her arms tightly. Her father. A fraction of a second passed. Yes. The way he said it told her everything and nothing at once. The car smelled like leather and something metallic. Nia sat stiffly in the back seat, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the darkened window as the city passed by. "This isn't necessary," she said quietly. "No," Laurent agreed. "But it is polite." They drove without sirens, without urgency. That scared her more than speed. "You're not from here," Laurent said after a while. "No. You don't have papers." Her heart stuttered. "That's not why we're here," he added smoothly. "Relax." She didn't. The car stopped outside a private clinic perched above the city. Inside, everything was white and silent. The girl sat on a bed, wrapped in a blanket, sipping juice. She looked up when Nia entered. Their eyes met. Recognition flickered there. "You're wet," the girl said. Nia smiled despite herself. "You scared everyone." The girl shrugged. "I didn't mean to fall." Laurent cleared his throat. "This is Nia. She's the one who saved you." The girl studied her closely. "Thank you." The words were polite, practiced. Children shouldn't sound like that, Nia thought. She straightened. "I'm glad you're okay." "That's all," Laurent said. "We wanted you to see she's safe." "And after?" Nia asked. Laurent met her gaze. "After," he said, "things become complicated. If you're watching right now, pause for 1 second. Because this is the moment most people don't see coming. If you want stories that pull you deeper instead of letting you breathe, make sure you subscribe, like, and follow, because from here on, every choice has consequences. They drove her home just as promised. A small apartment above a closed tailor shop. One room, one window, one door she locked the moment they left. Laurent handed her a card. "If anyone contacts you," he said, "call me first. And if I don't, then someone else will." The car disappeared down the street. Nia leaned against her door, heart racing. She hadn't just saved a child. She had been seen. And somewhere in the city, a man with far more power than she understood now knew her name, and would decide what to do with her. Nia didn't sleep. Every sound outside her apartment stretched too long. Footsteps echoed where there were none. A car engine idled somewhere down the street, cut off, then returned again minutes later. By dawn, she was sitting on the edge of her bed, shoes on, jacket zipped, phone clutched in her hand. She told herself she was imagining things. She told herself that before. It had never helped. When she stepped outside, the street looked normal. A bakery opening, a man walking his dog, a woman arguing into her phone. Then she saw the reflection. Across the street, in the dark window of a closed shop, a car sat parked where it hadn't been last night. Black, engine off, someone inside. Nia didn't look directly at it. She walked. The cafe by the harbor was already busy when she arrived. Plates clinked. Coffee hissed from the machine. The normalcy pressed against her nerves. "Rough night?" her manager asked, glancing at her damp shoes. "Didn't sleep," Nia said. "Join the club." She tied her apron and went to work. For the first hour, nothing happened. Then the man at table 6 asked for the check. He paid in cash. Too much of it. "Keep the change," he said, smiling. Nia froze. She had seen his face before. One of the men near the black cars. She forced herself to smile back. "Thank you." As she turned away, she felt it again. That sensation of being observed from every angle at once. By noon, she knew it wasn't her imagination. Everywhere she went, someone was already there. Sitting, standing, watching, not threatening, not obvious, just present. When her shift ended, Laurent was waiting outside. He didn't approach. He leaned against a lamppost, hands folded, as if he had all the time in the world. "You're being followed," Nia said flatly. "Yes," he replied. "For your safety." She laughed once, sharp. "That's not what this feels like." "It rarely does." They walked side by side along the harbor. People passed them. Boats rocked gently in the water. Laurent didn't look at her when he spoke. "The girl asked about you this morning." Nia stopped walking. Laurent took one more step before turning back. "She remembers your face," he said. "That matters." "To who?" "To her," Laurent said. "And to her father." Nia felt the weight of that sentence settle into her chest. "Why are you really watching me?" she asked. Laurent considered her. "Because you did something rare," he said. "You acted without calculation. That doesn't make me special." "It makes you dangerous," Laurent replied calmly. They resumed walking. "You saved Elise," he continued. "But you also disrupted a controlled environment. Her presence by the river was not accidental." Nia frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means someone made a mistake. And I fixed it." "Yes." She stopped again. "So why do I feel like I just made things worse?" Laurent met her eyes. "Because you did." That night, the knock came just after midnight. Not loud. Not urgent. Precise. Nia stood in the dark, heart pounding. She didn't answer. The knock came again. "Nia," a familiar voice said softly. "It's Elise." Her breath caught. She opened the door. The girl stood there in a pale coat, hair neatly braided, hands folded in front of her. Laurent stood behind her, shadowed. "Elise," Nia said. "What are you?" "I wanted to see you," the girl said. Laurent spoke quietly. She insisted. Against every instinct she had, Nia stepped aside. Elise walked in, eyes taking everything in. The small apartment, the narrow bed, the single chair. "This is where you live," she said. "Yes." "It's small." Nia smiled faintly. "It is." Elise turned to her. "Why did you jump?" The question landed heavier than expected. "Because you needed help," Nia said. Elise studied her face. "My father says most people don't do things like that." Nia said nothing. Laurent cleared his throat. "We won't stay long." Elise reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She handed it to Nia. "What's this?" Nia asked. "A drawing," Elise said. "So you don't forget me." Nia unfolded it slowly. Two figures. One tall, one small, both standing beside dark water. Above them, a large shape with sharp edges. "What's that?" Nia asked, pointing. Elise smiled politely. "That's my father." Laurent watched her closely. When they left, Nia locked the door and sank onto the bed, drawing clutched in her hands. She understood then. This wasn't gratitude. This was attachment. And attachment was dangerous. The pressure increased after that. Her landlord stopped answering her calls. Her bank card declined without explanation. The cafe reduced her shifts. Each problem arrived quietly, cleanly. Laurent always appeared shortly after. "We can help," he would say. "With what?" she asked once. "With stability," he replied. She refused every time. Until the night she came home to find her door unlocked. Nothing was stolen. Everything was moved just slightly enough to be wrong. On her table sat her passport. Open. Laurent's card lay beside it. She called the number. "I told you to call me first," he said calmly. Her voice shook. "What do you want?" "To make you an offer." They met in a private dining room overlooking the city. For the first time, Nia saw Victor Hahn. He was younger than she expected. Calm. Unremarkable. Dangerous in the way still water is dangerous. "You saved my daughter," he said. "That creates a bond." Nia said nothing. "I don't trust many people," Victor continued, "but I trust outcomes. And the outcome of your presence was favorable." "What do you want from me?" Nia asked. Victor smiled slightly. "I want you close to her." Silence stretched. "As what?" Nia asked. "A constant," Victor replied. Someone untainted by our world. Her pulse thundered in her ears. You're asking me to work for you? No, Victor said gently. I'm asking you to belong. She stood abruptly. I'm not for sale. Victor's smile faded. No, he agreed. You're not. Laurent met her eyes. You're already involved, he said softly. You just haven't chosen how. When Nia returned home, the black car was gone. But she knew. There was no leaving now. Somewhere in the city, lines had been drawn around her. And Elise, quiet, observant Elise, was standing at the center of it all, watching closely, learning how power moved. Learning what it cost. If you're still here, it means you're paying attention. This story isn't about what happens fast. It's about what happens quietly, when power starts to close in and you realize there's no clean way out. Stay with it. Nia didn't answer Victor Hahn that night. She left the private dining room without permission, without protest, without another word. Laurent didn't stop her. He walked beside her in silence, escorting her to the car, then to her apartment, then leaving her alone with the sound of her own breathing. Victor Hahn let her walk. That frightened her more than any threat could have. The next morning, the locks on her door were new. She hadn't asked for them. No note explained them. No one claimed responsibility. She tested them twice before leaving. Outside, the street looked unchanged. Same bakery, same cracked pavement, same distant sound of traffic drifting in from the main road. But the rhythm was different. People paused longer when they passed her. Conversations cut short. A man across the street adjusted his jacket when she looked up. She felt it again, that sense of being held inside an invisible frame. By noon, her phone rang. Unknown number. She didn't answer. It rang again. Then a message appeared. Elise would like to see you today. No signature. No location. Nia stared at the screen until her hands stopped shaking. She typed back once. Where? The reply came immediately. Your choice. She chose the park above the old port. Open space. Families. Noise. Witnesses. She arrived early and sat on a bench overlooking the water. The harbor shimmered below, deceptively calm. Boats moving slowly in and out like nothing in the world could disturb them. Elise appeared 10 minutes later. She wasn't alone. Laurent walked a few steps behind her. Not beside. Not leading. Watching. Elise climbed onto the bench without asking, feet swinging. She wore a yellow dress and white shoes, hair braided neatly again. You came, she said. Yes, Nia replied. You shouldn't be here alone. Elise tilted her head. I'm never alone. That wasn't a boast. It was a fact. They sat in silence for a moment. I had a dream, Elise said. You were underwater again. Nia swallowed. Was I? You didn't jump this time, Elise continued. You were already there. Nia looked at her. Did that scare you? Elise shook her head. No. You knew how to breathe. Laurent shifted behind them. Nia felt something tighten in her chest. Why did you want to see me? She asked gently. Elise traced the bench with her fingers. My father says you don't belong to us. Nia almost laughed. Your father is right. But he also says people who don't belong are useful, Elise added. That landed harder. Your father shouldn't talk to you like that, Nia said. Elise smiled faintly. He talks to me like I'm listening. Nia had no response to that. After a moment, Elise reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded paper. Another drawing. This one was different. 3 figures now. The tall one, the small one, and a third standing apart half in shadow. That's you, Elise said. Why am I far away? Elise thought about it. Because you're deciding. That afternoon, the cafe let her go. No confrontation. No explanation. Her manager wouldn't meet her eyes. I'm sorry, he said quietly. It's out of my hands. By evening, her landlord texted to say the building was being sold. Cash buyers. Immediate vacancy. Nia sat on her bed, phone in her hand, staring at the wall. This wasn't pressure. This was containment. Her phone buzzed again. Laurent. She answered. We need to talk, he said. About what? She asked flatly. About what happens if you keep refusing. She closed her eyes. You said this was a choice. It is, Laurent replied. But choices have consequences. They met at a small apartment overlooking the hills. Temporary, furnished, impersonal. You're being isolated, Laurent said once they were seated. That's not punishment. It's leverage. For what? Nia asked. For time, he said. Victor doesn't rush decisions. Neither should you. I don't want to be near him. Or her, Nia said. That should be enough. Laurent's gaze softened slightly. It isn't. Why me? She demanded. Why not someone else? Laurent was quiet for a long moment. Because Elise trusts you, he said. And because she shouldn't. That answer unsettled her more than any threat. Days passed. Then weeks. Nia drifted through them like a ghost. Every solution she reached for dissolved. Every door closed just before she touched it. Work applications vanished. Emails went unanswered. But every problem came with an answer. Laurent. A ride. A meal. Place to sit. Always available. Always calm. You're not trapped, he told her once. You're being invited. To what? She asked. To proximity, he said. To influence. One night, Elise stayed over. It wasn't planned. At least not openly. A storm rolled in unexpectedly. Roads flooded. Schedules changed. Elise sat at Nia's small table, coloring quietly. Do you like it here? Nia asked. Elise shrugged. It's quiet. That's good. It's different. Nia watched her carefully. Do you feel safe with your father? Elise didn't answer right away. My father doesn't like surprises, she said finally. Neither do the people around him. That didn't answer my question. Elise looked up. Safety isn't about comfort. It's about predictability. The words didn't sound like a child's. Nia felt something cold move through her. When Elise fell asleep on the couch, Nia covered her with a blanket and sat nearby, listening to her breathe. She understood then what Victor was doing. He wasn't forcing her. He was placing her where she would choose to stay. The first betrayal was small, almost invisible. Nia overheard Laurent speaking quietly on the phone in the next room. She's not resisting anymore, he said. Not actively. Pause. No, I don't think she realizes it. Nia stayed very still. When Laurent returned, his expression didn't change. Everything okay? He asked. Yes, she lied. But something shifted. She began to watch more closely. Elise's questions became sharper. Her silences longer. Did you ever leave something you loved? Elise asked one evening. Yes, Nia said. Did it hurt? Yes. Would you do it again? Nia hesitated. I don't know. Elise nodded. That's what my father says too. The realization crept in slowly. Elise wasn't just observing. She was learning. The invitation became formal. Victor requested Nia's presence at dinner. Not demanded. Requested. Laurent didn't try to convince her this time. You should come, he said. Not because you must. Because you need to understand what you're refusing. The dining room was intimate. No guards visible. No excess. Victor greeted her politely. You look tired, he said. So do you, Nia replied. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. They ate quietly for a while. I won't pretend this is charity, Victor said eventually. You're not naive enough to believe that. No, Nia said. I want stability for my daughter, he continued. And distance from my world has become unreliable. You want me to be a buffer, Nia said. Yes. And if I say no? Victor's gaze didn't harden. That was worse. Then Elise will adapt, he said. She always does. The implication was clear. Children learn what they are shown. Victor leaned back slightly. I didn't choose this life to be admired. I chose it to be effective. But I won't let it shape her alone. Nia felt anger flare. You already are. Victor regarded her calmly. Then help me stop. Silence filled the room. Nia saw it then, the truth beneath the manipulation. Victor was afraid. Not of enemies. not of exposure, of inheritance. That night, Nia stood alone on her balcony, city lights stretching endlessly below. She had tried to stay invisible, tried to pass through unnoticed. But saving Elise had made her visible to the most dangerous kind of person, someone who didn't need violence to win. Her phone buzzed. A message from Elise. "Will you stay?" Nia stared at the words until her vision blurred. She typed back slowly. "I don't know." The reply came seconds later. "That's okay. Neither do I." Nia closed her eyes. Somewhere behind her, lines were shifting again. Not because of force, but because of choice. And she knew now whatever she decided next would change more than her own life. By the time Nia realized the city had rearranged itself around her, it was already too late to trace where it had begun. Streets she used to walk without thinking now felt narrowed, as if the buildings leaned in to listen. Cafes that once buzzed with noise quieted when she entered. Faces lingered a second too long. None of it was aggressive. None of it was accidental. The absence of open hostility was the point. Victor Hahn didn't rule through fear. He ruled through inevitability. You didn't fight him because there was nothing visible to fight. You simply found that every option except the one he offered had disappeared. Elise adapted faster than Nia expected. That unsettled her more than anything else. The girl didn't resist the structure forming around her. She observed it, cataloged it, learned where the invisible walls stood. When schedules changed, Elise didn't complain. When routes were altered, she didn't ask why. She asked who had decided. Nia began to recognize the pattern in the questions. Elise wasn't trying to escape her father's world. She was trying to understand it. And worse, she was trying to understand where Nia fit inside it. The first real fracture came quietly, disguised as kindness. Laurent arranged a new apartment for Nia, closer to the hills, brighter, safer, with a view of the water that looked nothing like the river where Elise had fallen. He presented it as a favor, a way to reduce stress, a way to give Nia space to think. She accepted because refusing had begun to feel like shouting into a closed room. The apartment was too clean, too neutral, furnished with care but without personality, as if it were designed to be temporary even if she stayed forever. That was when Nia understood that Victor didn't want her comfortable. He wanted her settled. There was a difference. Elise visited often, sometimes with notice, sometimes without. She treated the apartment like a place she might one day inherit, opening drawers, touching surfaces, asking questions that sounded innocent until you listened closely. "If someone lives somewhere long enough," Elise asked once, sitting cross-legged on the couch, "does it start to belong to them?" Nia paused before answering. "Sometimes," she said. Elise nodded thoughtfully. "My father says ownership is about who leaves last." The words weren't threatening. They were observational. That was the problem. Laurent changed too. He became less patient, less careful with his silences. Where he once explained, he now implied. Where he once reassured, he now waited. Nia noticed it in small things, the way he stopped offering alternatives, the way he corrected her phrasing when she spoke about the future, the way he said when instead of if. When she confronted him, he didn't deny it. "You've passed the stage where you can pretend this is temporary," he told her. "So have we." She asked him when the decision had been made for her. He didn't answer. His silence was confirmation enough. The betrayal didn't come from Victor. It didn't come from Elise. It came from the only person Nia thought was still neutral. Camille Roche had been a harbor security officer once, the kind of woman who noticed patterns and asked questions without advertising that she was doing so. Nia had met her by accident weeks earlier, a brief conversation over coffee that felt like a return to normality. Camille had listened without prying, nodded without judgment, and left Nia with the dangerous sense that someone outside Victor's orbit still existed. That illusion shattered when Camille showed up unannounced one evening, standing in the doorway of Nia's apartment with a look that was equal parts regret and resolve. "I didn't know how else to do it," Camille said, stepping inside. "They already knew I talked to you." Nia felt the room tilt. "Who?" she asked, though she already knew. Camille didn't answer directly. She never did. "I told them you weren't a threat," Camille continued. I told them you were just trying to survive. Nia stared at her. You told them anything, she said quietly. Camille flinched. I thought it would protect you. The lie was gentle, well-intentioned, and catastrophic. Nia understood then that survival instincts didn't always point in the same direction. Camille had chosen her own. The consequences followed immediately. Victor requested Nia's presence again, this time without pretense. The message was short, precise, and unavoidable. She went because not going had stopped being an option that meant anything. The dinner was larger than before, attended by people whose names were not offered and whose gazes weighed more than they spoke. Elise was present too, seated beside her father, posture perfect, eyes alert. Nia felt something twist in her chest when Elise smiled at her, genuinely pleased to see her, unaware of the trap tightening around them both. Victor didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He simply laid out the facts. Camille's curiosity had been noticed. Nia's reluctance had been interpreted. The network around Elise had been evaluated and found wanting. Instability attracts attention, Victor said calmly. Attention attracts danger. He looked at Nia when he said it, not as a threat but as a statement of cause and effect. Nia replied without hesitation. Then let me leave. Victor shook his head slightly. Leaving doesn't erase attention, he said. It redirects it. Elise watched them closely, her gaze flicking between their faces, absorbing the dynamics. Nia saw comprehension dawn there, and with it something like disappointment. The offer changed that night. It hardened. Victor no longer spoke of proximity or influence. He spoke of responsibility. He framed it as protection, as a way to ensure Elise retained something uncorrupted in her life. You don't need to love us, he told Nia. You need to stay. The distinction mattered. Nia felt the weight of it settle over her like a closing door. When she tried to argue, Victor cut her off gently. You saved her once, he said. I'm asking you to keep doing that. The cruelty of the request lay in its logic. Nia had no clean rebuttal. Elise approached her later that evening, when the adults had retreated into quieter conversations. You're upset, Elise said. Nia knelt in front of her. I don't want to be, she replied. Elise considered this. My father says wanting doesn't change outcomes, she said. Only decisions do. Nia felt a flash of anger, sharp and protective. You shouldn't have to think like that, she said. Elise shrugged. I do anyway. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Nia realized then that Elise was already choosing which parts of her world to accept, and that Nia was one of them. The breaking point came days later, delivered with surgical precision. Laurent informed Nia that Camille had been reassigned. Not punished, not disappeared, reassigned. A quiet exile framed as a promotion. This is what cooperation looks like, Laurent said. Nia understood the message immediately. Victor wasn't angry. He was teaching. The lesson was simple. Resistance didn't lead to destruction. It led to erasure. The realization hollowed her out. Violence would have been easier to fight. This required endurance. Nia tried one last time to leave. She packed a bag, small and deliberate, choosing only what she could carry without thinking. She waited until night, until the city softened into shadow. She made it 3 blocks before the car pulled alongside her. No sirens, no confrontation, just Laurent's calm voice from the passenger seat. You're not running, he said. You're testing. She stopped walking. And? She asked. Laurent met her gaze. And the test is over. When Elise learned about it, she didn't cry. She didn't ask questions. She simply sat beside Nia and held her hand. I don't want you to disappear, she said quietly. Nia closed her eyes. In that moment, she understood the final cruelty of Victor's design. He hadn't trapped her with force or fear. He had trapped her with connection. Elise wasn't leverage. She was the lock. By the end of the week, Nia stopped talking about leaving. The city responded by easing its grip, just slightly. Doors opened again. Options reappeared, curated and conditional. Victor invited her to stay longer, to attend events, to occupy a space that was no longer peripheral. She accepted because refusal had lost its power. Inside, something hardened. Not submission. Calculation. Nia began to watch the way Elise watched, to learn the rhythms Victor thought invisible. If she was going to be inside this world, she would not be blind within it. The final scene of the batch settled quietly. Nia stood at the window of her apartment, Elise asleep in the next room. The city spread beneath her like a living map of consequences. She understood now that the danger wasn't what Victor might do to her. It was what staying would slowly make her become. And somewhere in that understanding, a decision was forming, not to escape, but to redefine the terms of her presence. The question was no longer whether she would stay. It was what she would take with her if she did. If you've stayed this long, don't look away now. What happens next isn't loud or explosive. It's quiet, deliberate, and irreversible. Stay with the story until the end. Nia learned the shape of the cage by walking its edges. Victor didn't restrict her movement. He refined it. Invitations arrived instead of orders. Schedules replaced spontaneity. People asked for her presence as if it were natural, as if she had always been meant to sit at certain tables and not others. The city adjusted around that assumption. Elise noticed first. She always did. She began referring to places as ours, testing the word, watching Nia's face when she said it. Nia corrected her gently at first, then less often, until the correction felt like a lie they both agreed to ignore. The transformation was subtle. Nia wasn't given authority. She was given relevance. People deferred without explaining why. Conflicts paused when she entered a room. Victor watched from a distance, measuring outcomes instead of reactions. He had stopped asking for her opinion. He didn't need to. Her presence alone was the signal. When she realized that, a cold clarity settled in. She was no longer a buffer. She was proof. Proof that Victor's world could absorb something clean and still function. Elise changed too. The child who once asked questions to understand now asked them to test. She learned which silences created discomfort and which dissolved it. She learned how long to wait before speaking, how to tilt her head to make adults underestimate her attention. Nia tried to counter it by insisting on normal things, homework, games, evenings without visitors, but normality here was a performance, not a foundation. Victor allowed it because it cost him nothing. He watched Elise watch Nia and considered the experiment successful. The confrontation Nia expected never came. Instead, there was an invitation to observe. Victor brought her into a meeting she wasn't meant to speak in, seating her slightly behind him, not as a subordinate but as context. The discussion was calm, logistical, focused on routes, contracts, delays. No threats, no raised voices. At the end, Victor didn't ask her what she thought. He asked her if she understood. She said yes. He nodded once, satisfied. Later, she realized that everyone in the room had recalibrated their behavior around her presence. She hadn't spoken, yet something had shifted. Power, she learned, didn't always announce itself. Sometimes it simply settled. That night, Nia stood on the balcony and stared at the water far below. The river where Elise had fallen felt impossibly distant now, like a memory borrowed from someone else's life. She tried to imagine what would have happened if she hadn't jumped. The answer came too easily. Elise would have survived anyway. Someone else would have acted. The difference wasn't the rescue. It was the witness. Nia had been seen choosing without calculation, and that choice had been harvested. Laurent approached her differently now. Less guidance, more candor. "You've crossed the threshold," he told her one evening. "People will begin to read you as intention." She asked him what Victor wanted in the end. Laurent considered before answering. "Continuity," he said. "A future that doesn't rupture." Nia asked where she fit into that future. Laurent didn't answer directly. He rarely did anymore. "Where you're already standing," he said. The cost arrived in pieces. Camille sent a message from her reassigned post, brief and careful, apologizing without explanation. Nia didn't reply. She understood now that apologies were currency too. The cafe reopened under new ownership. The old manager sent a text wishing her well. She deleted it. Every loose thread tied itself neatly, and the neatness was the most frightening part. Chaos could be resisted. Order demanded compliance. The night Elise asked the question, Nia knew the answer would decide everything. They were alone, the city muted beyond the windows. Elise sat at the table, drawing, her concentration absolute. Without looking up, she asked, "If you had known what would happen, would you still have jumped?" Nia didn't answer immediately. She considered the version of herself before the river, the woman who believed invisibility was safety. She considered the girl across from her, sharp-eyed and already assembling a map of power. "Yes," Nia said finally. Elise looked up then, searching her face. "Even now?" she asked. Nia held her gaze. "Especially now." Victor summoned Nia the following morning. The message was brief. He met her in a smaller room than usual, the intimacy deliberate. Elise was not present. That omission carried weight. Victor didn't waste time. "You've become part of the system," he said. "That creates responsibility." Nia nodded. "Then say it plainly," she replied. Victor studied her with something like respect. "I want you to stay," he said. "Not as protection, as principle." Nia felt the words settle. Principle implied permanence. It implied inheritance. "And if I refuse?" she asked. Victor didn't threaten. He didn't plead. "Then the system adjusts," he said. "It always does." She countered with the only leverage she had left. "What happens to Elise if I stay?" Victor's gaze sharpened. "She learns balance," he said. "Distance and closeness. Control and restraint." Nia leaned forward. "And if I leave?" Victor's voice softened, just slightly. "She learns efficiency," he said. The difference was everything. Nia asked for time. Victor granted it because he already had the answer he wanted. The city responded by holding its breath. Invitations paused. Decisions waited. Elise sensed the tension immediately. She followed Nia from room to room, quiet, observant, absorbing the stakes without being told. That evening, Elise placed a new drawing on the table. Two figures again, standing side by side, but the shadow above them had changed. It wasn't sharp anymore. It was wider. "It's growing," Elise said. Nia touched the paper gently. "So are you," she replied. The choice Nia made wasn't dramatic. It wasn't announced. She didn't confront Victor or flee in the night. She redefined the terms in the smallest way possible. She agreed to stay, but only on the condition that Elise's education included time away from the city, from the structure, from the constant calibration of consequence. Victor listened without interrupting. When she finished, he smiled faintly. "You're negotiating," he said. Nia met his gaze. "I'm participating," she replied. Victor accepted because participation was exactly what he wanted. The concession was real, limited, and binding. That mattered. The weeks that followed felt lighter, which terrified Nia more than the pressure had. Elise traveled. She returned with stories that weren't filtered through Victor's lens. She asked different questions. She laughed more easily. Victor watched all of it and adjusted, not to stop it, but to contain it. Nia realized then that she hadn't escaped the system. She had altered its variables. The victory was narrow and temporary, but it was hers. Laurent spoke to her privately one night, his tone unreadable. "You should be careful," he said. "You're becoming precedent." Nia understood the warning. Precedent invited challenge. It invited testing. She nodded. "So are you," she replied. Laurent smiled despite himself. The ending didn't arrive with closure. It arrived with recognition. Nia stood once more at the water's edge. Not the river this time, but the open harbor. Elise stood beside her, older in posture if not in years. "Do you think the water remembers?" Elise asked. Nia considered the question. "I think it keeps moving," she said. Elise nodded, satisfied. Behind them, the city hummed, efficient and watchful. Somewhere above, Victor made decisions that would ripple outward. Somewhere closer, someone else was watching Nia, recalculating her role. She felt it in the air, the subtle shift that meant attention had returned. The system was adjusting again. Nia took Elisa's hand, steadying her, feeling the weight of the future press closer. She understood now that saving a life wasn't a moment. It was a commitment, and commitments didn't end cleanly. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A new message, unknown number, contained only 4 words. We need to talk. If you want to know what happens next, if you want to see where this choice leads, stay connected. Like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes after this moment. Nia looked out over the water as the screen went dark, already knowing that whatever waited on the other side of that conversation would change everything again.